occupied this evening with a family commitment, and my name is Leslie Jones. I will be filling in for him this evening. We'll start by having an invocation by Councilmember Garrett, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Egbert.
Our Father in heaven, we bow before Thee this evening. We're grateful for this beautiful day and the chance we have to gather for this city council meeting. We're thankful for this community and that we have the opportunity to live here and rub shoulders with such great neighbors and community members. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to visit these items tonight, and we pray that Thou will bless us with guidance. We ask a blessing upon this city, that all of its members will be protected and comforted in their trials. We pray that Thou will bless us with guidance in our lives individually, and we ask for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We want to recognize Councilmember Carlson. He's phoning it in, literally, not figuratively, so you'll be hearing his voice on the speaker. We have time now for the public forum. We have one resident, one member, one person who has signed up to comment during public forum, Mr. Kobia. The time is yours. Please state your name.
My name's Mike Kobia. I live at 325 North, 300 West.
Mike, you've got to almost eat the microphone.
Yeah,
There you go.
and my voice isn't as good as it used to be. First thing, which is positive, so don't go the wrong direction. We've had a few run-ins with the police lately and family members and myself, and I just have to say, professional de-escalating, you guys got it. I watched this little bust you did over here last night. I took some pictures too, if you want. You know, and the kid was pretty wound up. He had some pot on him, and the officers, you know, just totally reassured him. You know, it's not like the YouTube videos I watch. No, really, I wanted to tell you guys, it's really, it's. I don't worry if, you know, my grandson's been picked up 3 times. All 3 things have been nothing but positive. So that's pretty cool.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, the second thing, and I talked about this once before, a few months ago, on 800 North, between 3rd West and 550 West, the amount of asphalt there is 22 feet at the narrowest point. If cars park along there, you could make it, but it's a problem. I really would like to see some no parking signs on the house side, and the individuals that live there also need to be reminded that they need to clean the sidewalks in front and the side when you have a corner lot. The problem is as I drive that at night, I run into people walking in the road when it's not clean, and I've nearly hit people a couple of times. The second spot, which is extremely problematic, the address is 731 West, 800 North. A house is being built there. It was permitted without the sidewalk being in. I don't know whether Dave or Arrive is responsible for that sidewalk, and if one of those could be a long time before it happened. But when cars are parked there at night, and sometimes they are, it's a 1-lane road. Mm-hmm. And you pull out to go around, and the people that are going to Fizz are walking in the middle of the road. And I probably came 3 feet from hitting a girl the other night that was walking out onto the edge. I'm old, I can't see as well. I don't know what the solution is, but that's not even close to half. I mean, it's barely half, let alone half plus 5.
I think it's a very valid concern, and correct me if I'm wrong, was there not a parcel at our last meeting up there on the corner of 8th West, or 8th North and about this same west? The 5-lot subdivision?
It's on 1200.
Oh, that's on
Mount
12th, excuse me.
Yeah,
Okay.
the piece of land across the street, I know who owns that. They live up in I believe it's Draper. They're not interested in developing or selling right now, so it's going to be a while. But because the exact codes weren't met when that was done, including the sidewalk, if something were to happen, the cities might be looking at a problem. If the sidewalk got in, that would really help. And I don't know why it's in. The retention basin's there on the corner, so I don't know whether you guys delayed it because of that, or
We just still have the bond for it, so it'll go in.
is that part of Dave's responsibility, or is that,
Dave Simpson?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, so there's,
At what point, Sean, there's not an expiration on that bond? I mean, how long, what would be the expected or anticipated timeline of
They
them?
they typically are a year.
Oh, are they?
But
Okay.
So,
roll over.
I noticed in all the other subdivisions, the sidewalks are in before buildings permits are issued. Is that just a convenience, or is that not a policy?
It's not a requirement. They don't have to have the sidewalk in for the permit, but they need it bonded for so that it will go in.
And then the other issue is the narrowness of the street. I understand why that happened, but I disagree with the reason that it happened, and I'd just like to throw it out there so that perhaps in the future it can be dealt with. There's already curb and gutter in there. That was put in back during the Bill Jones era years ago. It was actually, the street was not aligned properly to begin with. When they came in for that subdivision development, that should have been moved back so that that street was straight all the way, because now that street goes like this and this and this. And it could have been pretty much straight all the way through there just by moving that curb gutter back 3 feet until you get to the corner of 800. And that 800, it jogs out 800 west. And I don't know what the thinking was, whether whether Dave wanted to get one extra lot in there, but if the city had a policy where realigning of roads allowed for a non-conforming lot, you could fix a lot of these problems. And you don't have that, and you don't do that. But in this case, you could have said, okay, we're going to have a non-conforming lot that's slightly under, because the city wants to have the road straight, even though the developer may be entitled to put a jog in it. I don't see why that's not already a policy in place. That's basically it. Drive down that street during the day when the contractors are parked. Have you seen them there?
Occasionally, yeah.
I've heard about the dump trucks.
Mike,
Well, I can understand temporary stuff when you're doing construction and all that. That's not a big deal. And the police came out and actually put barricades along the one side because they were parking on both sides of the road for a while. And that helped out a lot because now they don't park there, and it's just on the one side. But I actually go clear down to 12th now because I'm afraid I'm going to hit somebody. And, I probably only drive a couple more years anyway, but you still need to, it's a problem. And I don't know how you're going to widen that road. I mean, when the people move in there, in that house, they're going to park on the street.
I don't know which house you're talking about.
731 West, 800 North. There's not room for a car. When you park in front of that house, there's room for one car to drive by, and you're about that far away from the dirt,
If they're parking on the street, you're saying.
if they're parking on the street. And 8th is not, it doesn't matter what the classification of the street is. It's a collector. It's used as a collector. The speed limit's 30. You guys need to drive past it, because there's going to be a problem there.
My kid goes to Lollipops, so I'm there every day,
You understand?
and I'm thankful Lollipops has a sidewalk coming in now. We've talked about.
Yeah,
that.
I understood that. Looks like they just put in about
Tons of-
10 grand worth of concrete around that place or more.
There's I know exactly where you're talking about, and I think that it's the same thing, there's, with the quantity of kids who actually do just
Yeah.
walk in the middle.
I really think that the staff has not seen the problem themselves.
Yeah, right after school, when all
When the kids are walking
in
down the middle of the road and there's no sidewalk in and the contractors are parked along the edge, you have about 6 feet to drive a car through there,
Yeah,
unless you want to be 2 inches away from the contractor's trucks.
I agree.
But you mentioned that when the barricades were put up, you felt like that,
Well, what it
It-
helped
it
is that
prevented the
helped them
parking on
from
both
parking on the
sides.
other side, because they
Yeah.
were pulling out into the dirt and parking next to the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would be about 8 or 10 inches into the asphalt. And so you'd have double cars parked like
Mm-hmm.
this, and you'd have one-lane tunnels down through there. And I understand they're building the house and they're developing it, but Dave needs to put the sidewalk in if he's responsible for it. And,
Are we able to flag him to say we've had some safety concerns? Is there any way to?
Yeah, I'm sure we can.
Encourage the timeline? At a minimum, that would be really helpful.
I mean, that would really help with the safety of the
I've
kids.
heard the same things as.
And then, I don't know what you're going to do about that narrow road in there, but in my opinion, Todd Whiting's house should have been, it's part of the subdivision. It should have had underground electric put to it, and the power pole across the street should have been, then that would have eliminated the power pole. So now, in the future, somebody's going to have to pay to get rid of that power pole and then, or move it, and there'll be underground electrical in that whenever it's developed. It's just something that was missed that should have been caught.
Mike, we have a few roads in our city that meet a very similar description of what you're describing, and 1600 South being one of them, which we don't control. But I think this could be added to the future discussions on road safety and sidewalk safety. And then Mr. Lord can weigh in.
There needs to be
Do you have any
some land
thoughts?
donated by the property owner and the street extended, but I don't know if they'll do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think Sean probably kind of hit it already. It's just a little hard when we've already got an established sidewalk, established curb and gutter, and then,
Yeah, but
and
established
knowing
curb and
that,
gutter's not a law. There's no rule.
No, and I
when somebody
understand
comes
that.
in with an application, that can be moved and it should have been.
yeah, and then obviously there's undeveloped land across the street, which,
Right, we'll just wait and see on
Yeah,
that one, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you. But if you would, please, drive by it and you'll see the concern that I have.
For sure.
All right, thank you. You guys
Thank
have a good
you.
evening.
Thank you, Mike.
you.
Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda. These items don't require discussion. Do we have a motion to approve or amend?
Controversial minutes.
I know.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from, to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, the motion to approve has been made by Councilmember Beck and has been seconded by Councilmember Garrett.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson? Reed, can you restate that, please?
Yes.
Carlson, yes. Okay,
Wilson, yes.
thank you. Okay, our first action item is a consideration of a request to adjust a property boundary between a parcel located at 130 East Maple and the Mapleton City Park. Sean, is this,
Yeah.
you want to give us some background?
Sure, thank you, members of the council. So this parcel is about a half an acre in size, but it's quite narrow. I think the frontage is about 84, 85 feet. The house was built in the 50s and did not have a driveway access, and there was a detached garage that was added later behind the house. And in 2008, the city agreed to allow for essentially an easement, a temporary easement to allow for access through Memorial Hall into that property. This is the, maybe, there you go. You can see where the access is into that backyard. Let me hit that next one. There you go. Come on. So in 2008, the city approved an agreement that would allow them to utilize the Memorial Hall for access, but it indicated that the agreement would be terminated once the property sold or was transferred, or the city determined that we no longer were going to have an access point there. The property owner's son is looking to purchase the home from the family, and is obviously concerned about the easement going away. And so their request was actually for the city to adjust the boundary approximately 10 feet to give them enough room to put a driveway into the back. Staff's a little concerned about, giving away that park space, but we would be very supportive of just transferring the agreement to the new property owner and allow them to continue to access that piece.
Thank you. We have the applicant. Is the applicant here? Come on. Please state your name.
So I'm Sean Curtis, and thanks for giving me some time, and good to meet you, Sean, in person.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking
Yeah.
over the last month or two. And thanks for the background. So I'm actually the son-in-law. My wife is their daughter, Rob and Linda Keddington, who currently have the home, and actually my wife's family has owned that home and property and much of the park property for the past, I don't know, maybe 100 years, and actually they've given over the years property to the city to have the park, including on that west side. Apparently, there's no record of this, unfortunately, but apparently there was a handshake at some point to give that west property line that we had an original request to accommodate the city parking lot. So, but there's no record of that, so we just kind of leave that out. So we're looking, my wife and I are looking to purchase the home primarily to take care of her parents who are struggling. And so I appreciate Councilmember Garrett's invocation today and where he mentioned people's trials. Her parents are pretty well known in the community and have been contributing over the years here. He's been an ecclesiastical presence here and also a public educator and principal. And so we're looking the idea is to purchase the home, to build an attachment, and we're going to remodel it and create ADA accommodations so that her parents can continue to live there and not struggle. Right now, they're going upstairs and having a hard time with a lot of items. So we're hoping to be able to do that. And as we were thinking through all of this, we started looking at the easement there on this side, and I started asking questions, and my father-in-law pulled out the agreement from the city that basically said that they would keep that easement as long as, they owned the home, but when they made a sale, it would go away. So I started kind of looking into what we would do there. We have some designers that are kind of putting together some potential plans for the home and to help us decide if we're going to do this. And I think it's, we need technically 15 feet to have a driveway. There's more than that on each side. However, with the window wells coming off of the home, there's 2 window wells on each side, it makes it difficult to put any kind of driveway on each of the sides. So that's a little more addition to the background. So really, our ask was to be able to get some additional property line, because as you can see, there's that space that's between the tennis courts and the property that, going all the way up the west side. I think it's just being used as a walkway to get to the baseball fields at this point. The hope was to get some of that and close off the easement and kind of settle. So I guess the request is for 2 reasons. Number one, to have reasonable access to the home and to actually have a driveway. Number 2, to kind of settle the open arrangement that's kind of been happening over the years, to be able to go through the city lot. Because the worry that I have is that this is subject to change with, a new mayor or a new city council down the road. So if we purchase the home, maybe the city council would be fine with that arrangement, but that might not continue. And so that's a concern and a reason for the request as we stated originally. That's really it. I just wanted to give a little more background and talk about kind of the request.
Great. We'll open it up to any council members that have questions. I have one just to clarify. This agreement, has this been recorded on title?
I don't think the agreement was ever recorded.
Okay, so it's just a private agreement per
A
se?
new one would be.
Okay.
We would.
Between the city and the owners.
Do you ever have any challenges of people parking in front so you can't access the driveway?
Yeah, that building, yeah, it typically happens when they have big events, like the craft, I don't know what they call it exactly.
Barn boutique.
Yeah, and every time they have that, people are pretty good about not parking right in front of our driveway, in the front of the driveway, but it gets pretty crowded there and challenging to get through. Wintertime can be a challenge sometimes with, the plows are prioritizing the main roads, and then they eventually get to that lot. But there's a pretty good dip there. They're probably going to have to refinish the parking lot, and so that can be a challenge at times. So that's a good question and a good point.
For that stall, or how wide that opening is it about one stall in
It's
width?
about
or
two. I think it's about
stalls?
two, yeah. We can fit 2 cars through into the open garage area. Not a garage, but a carport.
So my questions were, how is the access along the tennis courts? I'm very familiar with it. Is it often used? Because otherwise you kind of have to go around. And then the ask is for 10 feet of consideration. It's kind of just like you're requesting to sort of butt up against the tennis
Yeah.
courts, right? So to eliminate that path. Is there a range? Is there a 5 to 10? Like, 10 is the dream, but that depth is kind of used for access, so.
Yeah, 10 is kind of ideal, and I kind of looked at the space between the tennis court, thinking, that would make sense. That would give us enough to have a driveway that is sufficient for code, but also doesn't create some odd, I mean, having it really tied up against the house would be really unusual,
Yeah.
and so that was the hope, is to have something more normal there.
And then have we, Stephen or Sean, have we looked at, were we to permit, sell, transfer, whatever, 10 feet, would the width of the parking lots still allow that whole row of parking to be available for Memorial Hall? Is it wide enough if you subtract the 10 feet that you could still have parking there?
I would guess that it is, but we haven't laid anything
Okay.
out to see.
And 10 feet, we'll have to remeasure, it might be 8
Yeah.
feet.
Because I don't want to lose, I wouldn't want to lose parking. The access for citizens is important to me, but that doesn't mean it's the only option. Your dilemma is very interesting and historic. And so I appreciate both sides, especially as a new owner coming in to want to resolve it. I would too.
Yeah.
So I don't blame you for that. And realistically, could we capitalize on having 2 extra stalls there when if we closed it so you could have an entrance from Maple? So I can see
Yeah,
things
that's true.
being advantageous if the measurement's there. I personally have no problem continuing the agreement, but if there's a potential to resolve it, then I'd love to. I don't want the city to give away property. I would expect it to be purchased if we find that the measurements still fulfill our needs. I couldn't make a decision unless we knew that, because I wouldn't want to lose parking along that row. So if we can, I don't know if that means, this is a public hearing item, so there can be any other comments,
I think
right?
in that scenario, I often see people parallel park on the east side of Memorial
Yeah.
Hall. So that would probably be closed off then if it went that route.
This is an action item, so it's not a public hearing.
Yeah,
Oh, it's not?
no,
If the.
Oh, that's the action,
well,
great.
I'll let you keep talking, then I'll bring up.
I was just going to say, just from my memory, it probably could accommodate 3 stalls with the opening that we have today, just because some of the carport comes in and then there's more openings. So if we did close the easement, that would provide some additional parking as well.
I don't have any problem at all to continue the easement, getting it recorded at the county record, at the county. Giving the land up, I think, I'm not quite ready to do that. I know Logan, he's our Parks and Rec director, he's had some conversations about, envisioning or re-envisioning the parks, this park specifically, but the parks in our city. And so I would foresee, if there's an easement in place, as that re-envisioning takes place, maybe that's something that works into that equation in some way.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I don't know if that's a land swap for that bit with a little bit in the back. I mean, I don't know what that solution is, but I would hate to give that up now do some re-envisioning of that park space and think, man, I wish we had that 10 feet back, but yet we could use some different land somewhere else. So I would like to keep that option open, but I'm certainly not opposed to it. I just don't feel like we have enough information on what that park, how we're going to improve that park to commit to that.
I think I completely agree with you. My recommendation would be, your timing's a little off, because we're working on a master facilities plan that will help us figure out how we need to have our parks, our facilities, access to those. That path could be an integral access for lawnmowers, for example, that are wider than others. So there might be some implications there. My recommendation would probably be to, for the moment, approve that we continue the easement with a new buyer. And then, once we have our master facilities plan, come back and look if there's an opportunity to do that. Because I agree with you. I wouldn't, right now is a little tricky, and for tonight, I wouldn't sign off on it because I want the data on spaces there.
Yeah, just more details on that.
But like I said, I have no problem
I like, as a
continuing
staff, I like
access.
that idea too, and just on a note, we're starting our interviews with some of those consultants next week, so
Great.
this is something we'll hopefully have wrapped up by fall.
So we're saying there's a chance.
Well, I think, it sounds like, too, one of the possibilities is if you could live with the easement, worst-case scenario, the council's supportive of extending that, and then we
Absolutely.
could take some time to look at options. One of the things we were just discussing is you could potentially do a portion of this and then bump the driveway onto the property, so you're not taking the entire
Yeah,
site,
that-
but you're just
That
doing
was actually going to
something
be my
like that.
proposal, was,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's official,
that was
right?
going to be my proposal, is to give enough land for the driveway, but
For
still
napkin,
keep it
a
at the south
napkin.
part.
Yeah.
I mean, we may even be able to do a little bit of a property exchange. I don't know that there would be any value, but something so that he wasn't purchasing it, it was giving up
Swap.
this for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're willing to talk about options.
Well, and while we're talking about that, maybe there's some discussions of improvements along Maple Street, along your property as well. You can see that sidewalks are coming
Oh, yeah,
from both that
Yeah.
east and west. so maybe
Oh,
that's
great
something to
point.
look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's no sidewalk, I think, in front of the home currently,
Correct.
from what I remember.
That would
And-
make good sense.
So a couple of concerns that I have is just, my wife and I are trying to make a decision on a very significant future investment. And doing that with uncertainty of easement access would be a challenge for us. And I just worry, I think it's highly unusual for a private home to be using city property to access their home. I don't see that in any other cities that I've ever been in. So although I do think it's great that we're going to be planning out, the park and how we can better use that space, I think that's awesome. My worry is that, we're at a critical moment for our family where our in-laws are struggling and having falls, in their home, and we're trying to help that situation. So, and we also are in a situation where we're either going to do this or move to the East Coast for my employment. And so there's some big decisions weighing on this, and so.
Unfortunately, the house wasn't built with a driveway, so I think,
Yeah.
I'm glad there's been an easement, so there could be vehicles parking there.
Yeah.
It is a very awkward situation. The easement is a great accommodation from the city to allow that. I wish there would have been a driveway originally,
Yeah.
and obviously the lot's narrower, but without data, I can't make a decision like
Sure,
that.
and I think that's fine if we need to regroup and look at some data. And I don't know the city requirements or ordinances, codes around, I know there's a code around, like, there has to be sufficient access to the home. I don't know exactly what that means. I know there's, measurements and things like that. I think that the hope is to be able to settle this so that there's not like an arrangement between a private home and a city property. And so the worry is that, if we go off of possibilities and make a big decision and things don't pan out like we thought and we end up with an extension of this easement, we'll deal with the inconvenience of driving through, events and things. But down the road, if we get to a point where we might sell the home one day, now we've got to tell a potential buyer, hey, there's this weird easement, and you're going to have to talk to the city to see if you can get something in place like we did years ago. And I just think that'd be very challenging for us to do that. I think it would steer people away from that possibility. So that's the only kind of note that I had at the end.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct that having an easement in this regard is not ideal. There's no doubt about that. And I believe, at least with this council, I believe that there is an intent to find the right solution. And I don't know that I don't believe the right solution is an easement long-term.
Yeah.
Right, I don't. I believe there is a solution that can accommodate what you're just suggesting, right? How can we make this correct and get the city out of your private house access? I believe that is. I don't know what that is exactly, but I think there is some intent by this council to find that. I mean, it's a real concern that you have, and I would have the same concern.
Agreed. That's exactly where I am. It's to continue the easement as something now so that when you buy, if you buy it, you continue to have access and not allow that to expire, right? So that's no problem. We'll continue that, no big deal. But meanwhile, we find a permanent solution, which may not be 8 or 10 feet into the city's property. It may be something collaborating with
In the middle,
engineering to
yeah.
figure it out. So I think the intention is, let's make it okay, so if you buy it, you'll have the access. I don't think anybody would be antagonistic, but I can't guarantee that after we've come and gone. But I think we keep working on the solution, because it's awkward for the city as well.
Well, and I think with this the facilities master plan that's underway, that could take a few months. So we're not talking, this will be worked out in 5 years. Now, I understand you've got decisions to make that aren't on a 6-month or 9-month timeframe. I get that. But this would be something that would be, I would think, would be at the top of the list as soon as this plan is done. This would be a top priority to remedy, because this isn't ideal for you or the city.
Yeah.
That doesn't help your personal decision
It doesn't.
timeline. I get that.
Yeah, it puts us in a very precarious situation to wait, months to figure this out.
I wish we could say, hey, it started with a handshake, Dale, 100 years ago. I wish we could say, let's shake on it and be good with it, but the world doesn't work
Yeah,
out.
yeah, I get it, yeah. And I'm happy to meet in the middle somehow with to make a solution. It just, the timing is hard. Okay. I think I've kind of made the request and the case for the request and the challenge with the timing. I don't know if there's much more for me to say.
I think it'd probably be putting together an actual plan to show this is what it would look like so that we could evaluate it and then bring it
Yeah.
back.
So what we can do, though, I'll make the motion to continue the easement on the property as described, and request that staff continues working with you to resolve a more permanent solution.
Okay.
That's my motion.
I'll second that. Okay, so the motion has been proposed by Councilmember Egbert and seconded by Councilmember Jones.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Reed?
Carlson, yes.
That was a Carlson, yes.
Keep working on it. We're obligated to make decisions based on more context than we have, but we believe
Yeah, there's a
an
solution out
outcome will
there.
happen here, but our timeline and your timelines aren't necessarily the same. So good
Yeah.
luck with your decision. Hopefully, we'll be able to work through this.
Yeah, there is
Okay.
a solution.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the public hearing item number 4, consideration of an ordinance to rezone approximately 2.6 acres from A2 to RA1 and review a concept plan for a 2-lot subdivision located at 555 South Main Street. Sean?
Thank you, members of the council. So as you mentioned, the property is just a little over 2.5 acres in size. It's currently zoned A2. There is one existing home on the property. The applicant's requesting approval to rezone the property from A2 to RA1. The RA1 zone would allow lots as small as 1 acre. They've submitted a concept plan that shows a 1.4 acre lot that would front on Main Street, that would contain the existing dwelling, and then a 1.25 acre lot that would front on the new Maple Lake Drive to the east. This is the existing site. You see Main Street on the left, Maple Lake Drive on the right. This is the existing zoning. See a little bit of patchwork between the A2, which is the green, and the purple is the RA1. Some of the adjacent properties have already been zoned to RA1. And then as we look at the general plan, the idea is that everything from 9th South to Maple Street and everything west of Maple Lake Drive could potentially be that RA1 zone. So the rezone request is consistent with the general plan. 2 lots over an acre in size is consistent with that RA1 zoning. If the rezone is approved, they would then submit a formal application for the subdivision. But staff is recommending approval of the rezone.
Thank you. This is a public hearing item, so is there anyone here who would like to comment on this application item? Seeing as there are no comments to be made, we will close public hearing and open it up for council discussion.
I just think it's a nice opportunity for this property owner to do something with this depth of land that didn't have access in the back. So I actually really appreciate how this has ended up.
Yeah, I agree. Seems like a pretty straightforward
Yeah.
change.
Highest and best use of the property. Yep. Is there a motion on the table?
I'll motion to approve the rezone property to RA1.
Second. The motion to approve the agenda item has been made by Councilmember Beck and seconded by Councilmember Jones. Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Reed?
Carlson, yes.
Thank you. Okay, the last item, another public hearing item. This is what everybody's been waiting to hear. This is our resolution to establish the residential and commercial fiber optic utility rates. Matt Hancock, we'll turn the time to you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, right?
Yes, sir.
Great. Good evening, Council. Just to, before you guys have a resolution to set fiber optic rates, I know that in the past we've have had a few council meetings as far as work sessions, also in the retreat that we had extensively talked about these rates and how to set them. There has been a lot of interest in the fiber optic system. I've had a lot of people ask about it. A lot of people ask about rates. Many have asked about even promotional rates, such as for senior citizens and others. And I think that is something that the council should really consider, down the road. But I think for tonight, I think it's best that we set base rates and then look at setting some commercial rates down the road for that. And some of the things that some of the major items that the council and the staff had reviewed to set these rates, or we looked at the services that were of other providers, potential customers, based on our take rate that we figured we would get at 45%, symmetrical speed rates, which we talked about that quite a bit, which is there's no caps on data, it's just up and down is the same speeds. We also talked about offering wireless routers to the customers. We reviewed the construction installation costs. We reviewed the revenues versus the operating costs. And we also looked at what it would take for the bonding and the debt service to be satisfied during these rates. And so we talked about these details in detail, these rates. And what we came up with for the rates that we're proposing tonight, and what the City Council has agreed to look at doing, is 2 sets of rates. One will be for residential, and one will be for commercial. The residential rates will be set in 3 tiers: 300 up and down, as you can see on the graph, a 1 gig up and down, and we believe this is going to be our best value, and probably a workhorse for the, or should I say a flagship for the utility. And then a 2 gig rate, The 300 up and down meg would be around $79, $89 for the 1 gig, $129 for the 2 gig. And then we are going to look at offering a wireless gateway for those who want it at a $15 a month cost for that gateway. Just as a note for this, and I think this is something that the council was very cognizant about when these rates were set, is if you look at rates that people are getting now, the rates are usually advertised, and then when you get your bill, you have a lot of surcharges and taxes and other things that are on your rates. And so I know the city council looked at this and wanted to show rates. The same rate that we see here on the screen is the same rate as in the bill. And if you look at these rates, there's about $5 that are rolled up in these rates, which are surcharges and which are mandated by a state, House Bill 149. And so if we were to advertise the same way as others would advertise these rates, for instance, the affordable 300 at 79 would basically be about 74. And so you can see that I really like that idea, that what you see is what you get. If you go to the next slide there, I don't know if you have the commercial slide. The commercial slide is going to be the same type of rates. However, we are going to offer a high-speed business service, which is in a 5 gig and a 10 gig rate. Also in the commercial rates, as you noticed in the residential rates, we had no installation fees or cost to put that into a resident. The businesses will be charged for installation and for access terminal. And you can see that the 300 meg rate will be at $89. The 1 gig will be $119. The 2 gig is at $150. And then the high-speed business service at 5 and 10 gig will be $249 and $349, respectively. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, for the router, I just wanted to clarify, what's the rough price on the market for that type of router that we're thinking about offering?
It's about $100 and $150.
Okay.
If you were to buy a router out on the market. Mm-hmm. This particular router is going to be set up for our system. It's also going to have we call it a Command IQ. It's an app that's on the phone that you'll be able to see your systems. It's a lot better router than really what you can get on the market.
Now, I know it is, as we've had some ongoing conversations about this, we certainly want people to, as they sign up for the service, take the router, do the managed service. It's just easier for the average internet user like myself. There will be people that perhaps have access to the approved router. Would you, just for the public record, just mention, so if I want to sign up for internet and I have an approved router already, what can I expect? Do I get a discount? That question will come up. So what does that look like? Do I get some benefit that others don't, that they're getting that included?
Right. Well, as you look at the residential rate, we're only going to offer the router to the residents at this time. And this offering is if the residents want to pay $15 for a managed router. Okay, and so that's the question, is whether they want to have the city manage it or whether they want to buy their own.
Okay.
Pretty simple. Any other questions?
I think it's exciting that we're at this point. We've talked about this for 2 years. Many of us have discussed, as we've lived in the community or even as we've run for council and been on council, the need for additional revenue streams in our city. And we don't have great coverage across the city with internet. And this is a great opportunity to keep those dollars in our city that are being spent anyway. And so it's really exciting to see that.
I shared some of these numbers with a neighborhood group and had quite a bit of positive feedback. Had one complaint that they'll just keep their existing $50 T-Mobile service, and I said, it's not really comparable, but it's all right. Go ahead. So my real serious question here, sarcasm intended, 150, not 149. I mean, come on, man. No.
That's up to you. $1, just to make it look
Got to have
pretty.
nines on all of them. No, I think this is really,
Okay.
this is exciting, and I've seen tons of positive feedback.
Great, thank you. That's
And
good.
for the router, for the approved routers, it'll be pretty easy for a customer to see to see the list of approved routers.
Right, and the reason that we want to do that is, if you look at these ratings, the 300 meg and the 1 gig router, those are pretty much off the shelf. You can buy them pretty much anywhere and plug them in and they'll work, okay? When you get into the 2 gig range, the Consumer Electronics Show is starting to bring those out, and they are coming, but they're not very accessible, and they're fairly expensive if you want those speeds. We just don't want people to have to, that's why we wanted to provide a router that would cover all of these ranges. Because if somebody signs up for a 2 gig or even a 5 gig rate, you have to have a specialized piece of equipment to make that thing work at those speeds. And right now, the consumer doesn't have access to those super high speed equipment unless you pay a lot of money for it. And so that was one of the reasons we want to make sure that the citizens of Mapleton have a good experience with Mapleton City Network, that they can plug in Mapleton City Network router and it'll work across these tiers.
So the question that everybody in town is dying to know,
Where?
when will you be starting at Harvest Park to build it out?
Nice.
Yeah, everybody
Everybody
wants to know
wants to know
about
about
Harvest Park.
Harvest Park, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great step forward because if we do get this resolution going and you guys do pass this, we can start the websites and actually have an area for people to sign up for interest.
Great, thank you.
I just want to state for the record, I'm supportive of these base rates. I think this is a great step in moving forward for this success, with my caveat that I'm very much a proponent for future promotional rates, discounted rates in the future as our bonding gets more secure, things like that. For those households who are just fine with a lot slower speeds with a lot lower monthly payment. So just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Sure, and we talked about that in staff, about bringing some of those options to you down the road here so you guys can look at promotional rates and decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked specifically about a seniors rate where it's a household with very low use.
Yep.
And so I would really love to see that. But in terms of, for tonight, I think it looks great.
Great, well, thank you. Any other questions for Matt before we open it for public comment? Okay, we'll now turn the time, open the time for public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this topic? Seeing as there is no one commenting, we will close public comment and we'll open it up to council members for discussion and a motion.
Did you say emotion or emotion?
Both.
I'm going to go ahead and motion.
Motion with emotion.
Yes.
Motion, an emotional motion. I will make a motion to approve these base rates for the fiber internet in Mapleton City.
I will second.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Jones and seconded by Councilmember Beck.
Garrett, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Beck, yes.
Jones, yes. Reed?
Carlson, yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Can we celebrate? Yay. And I too am interested in to consider, senior rates and so forth as well. That'd be great. Okay, let's turn the time open now open the time to administrative reports. We lost Sean, so Mr. Lord.
Sean has nothing.
That works.
He's had it, he's had it.
Just one thing you probably noticed, maybe you noticed, the sidewalk trimming, grinding program is in process. In fact, I think they were finished today. So we got all those hazards done. And then over the next couple of weeks, we'll be checking, inspecting, making sure it was all done right, and then pay the bill. But we were pleased with how that went. That's it. That's all I got.
One question on that. I thought about this early in when we were talking about this, but I forgot to ask it. Did they do any kind of lifting at all, or was it just grinding current?
Grinding. Yep, that's their specialty.
I saw a few instances where it would have been really simple just to lift one panel, and I know that technology's out there,
It's
so,
not super simple.
right.
Is there, what's the cost difference on that, too?
It's a little more expensive to lift, and the lifting, depending on the circumstance, it's sometimes great, sometimes not. We lift it out here a little bit,
It's kind of a short-term type.
but yeah, it just depends. So we made a choice,
Yeah.
and instead of having some lifting and some grinding, we went with grinding all over the, so.
Is there a next phase in this process, or is the sidewalk repairs completed?
That's it for this year, for this fiscal year. So we'll look at, the next step is inspection. So if you remember, we inspected the whole city just before Christmas in the fall sometime last year.
Yeah.
So this coming fall, we'll do it again, just not the whole city this time. We've split it up into 5 areas so that every sidewalk in town gets inspected once every 5 years. So come fall, we'll do a smaller inspection and then address any concerns that show up on that inspection. So it's a nice rolling plan from now on.
Great.
That's it.
Thank
Stephen,
you.
where's your police jacket tonight?
I didn't, he did text me today. Usually he texts me when he wears it so I can wear mine, but he didn't today.
Hey, when is Police Appreciation Month?
We took it back, we don't let him wear it.
No, we don't.
That is so mean.
Too many people came to.
Is there a Police Appreciation Month? Well, if there is, I think we all should wear our Mapleton Police uniform.
I'm never wearing it again after that comment.
I've got a day for you, you can wear it.
Okay.
In fact, that's gonna be my report. I'm sorry, Steve, I take it back. I take it back. I've got a fun day for you. This is gonna be awesome. So, about a year ago, well, the last legislative session, year before last, there was a mandate that came down that officers had to attend a certain amount of numbers of de-escalation training and autism awareness. And of course, it came and we were like, oh man, we gotta go to this, but it was the best training. It was awesome. It was just a fun day. Nebo School District put it on and they brought in some special needs people and we got to interact with them and it was just fabulous. So we left that and came back and said, we gotta keep moving with something here. So on April 27th, we're gonna have, it's a Wednesday night. Is there a council meeting that night? It just hit me. Okay, so April 27th, from 6:30 to 8, I've put Officer Miller in charge of this and Chief Glasgow is involved as well. But we're going to invite and open our doors to any local special needs people to come in and interact and if they see fit, if their families see fit, share some information that would be useful to us if we have an interaction with them down the road. And I'm just pumped about it. This is going to be a fun event. We're going to do some fun things. We've got some stickers made up already that are ordered, so I'm excited about that. So that'll be April 27th. And
We'll
then I
send
have
an email out, reminder
Yep.
on that as well.
We're
In the evening, you said?
it's in the evening, 6:30. We're like an inch away from having the flyer done.
Oh,
And
okay.
then I'll send that out to you. And then I have another fun event, but I have to clear it through Corey and the insurance company, so I can't talk about that one.
I mean, if you're gonna clear it through insurance, I'll be there.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's gonna be way fun. So anyway, thanks.
All right, mine, kudos to Chief Jackson. I attended an event where he spoke on a panel with Parowan Chief Mike Berg, Utah County Sheriff Mike Smith, and the Utah League of Cities and Towns Public Safety Policy Advisor John Park, and he did a fantastic job representing the city and our community, and it was awesome. I've had the opportunity to participate with Provo City on their Staff Innovation Grant Program and submitted the recommendation to Corey, and I know Corey and Sean are meeting with Provo City next week. It's such a great opportunity to increase effectiveness, but also promote positive morale and retain the great employees we have. And so basically what the program is there's an allotted money in the Provo City budget for staff innovation, and they submit a simple application that justifies the rationale, how it solves a problem, how it's innovative, and requests any amount up to $25,000 in their case. So we reviewed about 23 applications, and it's just awesome. I've done it previous years, and I just love to see us consider something like that even as a pilot for our staff here. I love the opportunity to find innovation solutions and also recognize the intelligence that comes from the staff that might be outside of our traditional budget experience. One of the things, one of my favorite things someone had proposed at engineering, they wrote great ones, but this drone LiDAR to look at open trenches, it was so cool. But anyhow, and historically they funded last year or the year before a painting robot, so nobody has to go paint their athletic fields anymore. It saved multiple FTEs to just get the robot, they geocode it, and then have it go out and paint their soccer fields.
Wow.
And I was like, can we borrow your robot? So things like that maybe we just haven't even thought of, but we have a staff member poking around. So I'd love to see that happen for our next fiscal year, if we can fund that. They've certainly gotten more savings out of it than they've spent on it. And there are rewards. Employees get a gift card who submit if they just apply, and then if they win some. So I love that. Those are my updates. The drone LiDAR is legit.
I got a good selfie with her phone. It's awesome.
And I have shared it with a whole lot of people.
I saw it. Good job.
I'm not supposed to share it. I was teasing with that.
I saw it
It's
somewhere.
fantastic. It's fantastic.
That was fun. Thanks for letting us come to that.
I don't have anything.
The Mapleton Historical Committee, or what is soon to be known as the Mapleton Town Square Committee, is sponsoring the barn, an old-fashioned barn raising to help finish the barn this Saturday, and I believe the 26th. I think that's a Saturday as well, from, I think, 9 to 1. And the public and everybody will be invited to come and hammer a few nails and raise the barn.
Two notes on that, too. I noticed they were doing some masonry work over there the other day around that statue. And then, second, in our next council meeting, we're going to come with a proposed amendment to, as Councilmember Jones just mentioned, to establish that committee. So you'll be seeing that in our next meeting, too.
Great. Theron?
Nothing other than we are close to getting a Trails Committee put together. So
Great.
stay tuned.
Corey, Camille? Nothing for me.
The only thing, just keep in mind, for the month of April, we'll only have one meeting, as you've seen from our email, and that meeting's going to be April the 13th, so that'll be the second Wednesday of the month.
And that will be the only meeting of the month?
That's the only meeting of that month, yeah, except for Chief Jackson, as he's mentioned, on the 27th. You're welcome to come to that. But yeah, that'll be the 13th, and that will allow us to avoid our the spring break, and then also the Utah League's conference. It's taking place in April as well.
Great, thank you. Madison, do you have an update?
I'm just looking forward to diving into the marketing strategy we discussed in the retreat about the fiber rates. We know the questions we're getting, when, where, how much, so it's great to be able to have an answer to one of those questions and get this information out there.
Great, thank you. Okay, y'all know what's next.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, Reed, you know what, Reed, I am so sorry. I've remembered you all night long, except for when it's time to close. Sorry, Reed.
I'm the only one bringing money to the meeting.
I know, darn it. Reed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm that Sumo did decide in their last board meeting to sell the property. It probably, closing will probably be like the middle of April or so, and disbursement of the checks to the various cities involved would take place after that. So I guess that's a good thing. That's what we're looking forward to. The other item is the Solid Waste District does plan to have a groundbreaking ceremony for the new building and the new facility. I don't have the date yet, but it's going to be fairly soon, but I don't have a date yet, and I'll let you know as soon as I do.
Great, thank you, Reed.
You got it.
Thank you. I was halfway to the car, but when you said you had money, well, we had to, sorry. Okay, there was a, you want to make your motion again, please?
Yes, motion to adjourn.
Second. See y'all later. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.